I'm going to show you how to make a 1/4 inch or 6mm groove on the edge of a board. I'm going to assume that the purpose is to hold a 1/4 inch panel material, or actually 5mm thick, on its edge like this. Normally this would be to make frame and panel doors or frame and panel sides or components. I'm going to do with a sharp utility knife and a 1/4 inch chisel. You can't really do it with less than that. So get a 1/4 inch chisel. Now the edge you want to work with, you can use the chisel to mark it, and again I'm going to assume that you want the groove centered on the edge of the board. So let's mark it. And of course a little bit of room for the panel to wiggle around is not a problem. Now there's several ways that we could do this to mark it, but ultimately what we want is a sharp cut, a very straight and very sharp cut along the grain to form the start of the groove. So what's a safe way to do that? We could lay it down like this, clamp it, and you will need to find something that is the right thickness that will line up with your mark that you just made. Very often something like a paint stir stick will work. This just happens to be the perfect size, and with your sharp knife you can slide the board. So I've clamped it tightly, and there's no need to hurry with this. Back up a little bit. Oh. Make sure you pull back on that spacer board. Don't pull back on the blade very much, just kind of let it follow that board. You want your fingers nicely far away. And if you have to, just let the board sit there. There is no reason to get your fingers close. There we go, just like that. Bring it back a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing. So you can see the clearly defined cut lines that I made when the board was laying on the flat side. Now I've clamped it like this. This only works for a small board, a small short rail, but it's a very secure way of doing it, and you have actually something to rest it up against. Now what you're going to do is take your 1/4 inch chisel and start not quite at the end, just inside of it, and you'll come back to finish it later, and go along and take a very slight paring, and do this very slowly, and you're going to pare pretty much down to where you cut with the knife, and do it slowly. Just slide the back of your fingers along the edge, and just take a little bit at once. You can tap lightly with the hammer as well. Whatever you do, don't try to go below your cut line. Once you've pared down to your cut line, I can still see here, it's quite obvious, I can see it. But once you've gone down far enough, you'll want to go over your lines with the knife. Now since you've done these already and you're going to have a slight wall to rest the blade against, you don't need to lay the board flat down again to do this. You can simply go over it again, and keep both hands behind the blade and just follow along. And be careful about it. Sometimes the blade wants to just jump over if you have some little pieces missing or an irregularity in the wood. And you might say it's a slow process. Well, it is a slow process because after all you're doing it all with a chisel. I have to be careful not to go too deep. It's easy to do. Okay, there we go. If the wood wants to split a little bit to one side, it may be that you're letting your blade fall towards the center of the board. Try keeping the edge of the blade, the cutting edge, right in that corner like that. And make sure you keep it like this as you redo your cuts. How deep do you go? Well, you could go about as deep as the groove is wide, so about 5-6 millimeters would be good. Just drag the chisel back so that the corners can clear out the fibers in there.